Today we are going to discuss thousandths. Before jumping into thousandths, we're going to review the other place values that are decimals that we have discussed so far. Here we have tenths, and we know that tenths come from taking one whole and dividing it into 10 equal sections. And each one of these sections would be 1/10 of our original figure. So thus we call it them tenths. Now if we take these tenths and divide them into 10 sections horizontally, we will have what we call hundredths. And so when we get finished doing that, it would look something like this next slide. Here we find that our figure has been divided into hundredths, and if you were to count every single one of these boxes, you would find that there are 10 by 10 boxes, so that would be 100 in total. If I were to shade in one of these boxes, that would represent 1/100th. If I shaded in 4 of these boxes, that would represent 4 hundredths, or 4 hundredths. Okay, now, since we have divided tenths into 10 parts to equal hundredths, what would happen if we divided each one of these individual boxes into 10 more pieces? Well, this is what we have. We would have the thousandths place. This is our thousandths grid. So if we took all of those hundredths and we drew 10 boxes within them, we would have what's called thousandths. Now thousandths are incredibly small, so if we zoom in here, and I chose to shade in a portion of this, so maybe I do this section here, because I have shaded in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that would be 7 thousandths. Each one of those little tiny boxes is considered to be a thousandth, and that would be expressed as 7 thousandths, where 7 is falling in the thousandths place. Okay, let's find where thousandths fall in the standard form of a number. Here, if we have our decimal point, you know that immediately to the left of our decimal point, the 2 is in the ones place. The 1 is in our tens place, and the 9 is in our hundreds place. If we go immediately to the right of our decimal, that is our tenths place, because we have divided one whole into tenths. To the right of that, we have our hundredths place. And finally, that would be our thousandths place. The 5 falls in the thousandths place. As we discussed before, our place values, once we get past that decimal point, they almost reflect what's going on in the whole numbers. Here you have tenths, tens, here you have tenths, hundreds, hundredths, thousands would go just past the hundreds. Here we have thousandths. To read this number in word form, you would read this as a normal whole number. Remember to say "and" at the decimal point. You read the last number as if it's a whole number, but then you read that last place value, which in this case is thousands. So this number would read 912 and 45 thousandths. All right, now we are going to practice writing standard form numbers in the hundredths in word form. You're going to find that reading these numbers is very similar to when we were doing just tenths and hundredths. Now we just have added an additional place value. For our first example, you can express this in one of two ways. You may choose to read the 0, or you may choose to just read the decimal portion of this. I'm going to read it this time, and I will also write it the second way. So if I'm going to read it, the first number I have is 0. When you reach the decimal point, remember you say "and." And then read this number as if it's a whole number, and that would be 765. The only thing that you have to do in addition to that is you have to name the place value that that last digit is falling in. And in this case, it is in the thousands place. So we would write thousands right at the end. And that's all you have to do to read that. If you choose not to write the 0 and, you can just write the decimal portion of that number, and that would be 765. And then again, you just read that last place value, and that's the thousands place, so thousandths. Example 2. Our whole number is 8, so 8. We have reached the decimal point, so we write the word and then read this as a whole number, that's 133. But then you tack on the place value, 133 thousandths. Try this last one on your own, and then hit play when you're ready to see the final answer. Okay, hopefully you got this right. The answer is 14 and 27 thousandths. Now this looks a little different because we have a 0 in the middle here, but remember, you just read the whole number, say and then for the decimal portion, you read it as a whole number, so that whole number is 27, and just say that last place value that the 7 is falling in, and that's the thousandths place. All right, now we're ready to do from word form to standard form. Example 1, 1 and 186 thousandths. Everything to the right of the word and is going to be our whole number. So our whole number here is 1. When we get to that word and, we need to put in a decimal point. Then we read 186 thousandths. So we have the number 186, but we have to be careful that that last digit, that 6, is in the thousands place. So 186, and double check, is that the thousands place? Well, it's 1, 2, 3 spaces to the right of the decimal. It sure is. So there's our answer in standard form. Example 2, we have 17 and, that's our decimal point, 63 thousandths. Again, we should have that number falling in, the last digit falling in the thousands. So we have 17 and when you read this number, you have 63, but that last digit, that 3, should be in the thousands place. So be careful. If you were to write 63 like this, you find that that 3 is falling in the hundredths place, so that is not correct. 17 and 63 thousandths would look like this. And here you see that you have your 3 in your thousands place, and we did have to insert a 0 right here so that this was true to what our question asked for. Example 3 reads 109 thousandths. So here again to the right we have our whole number. Our whole number is 100, so you write 100. The word and is going to be a decimal point, and then we have 9 thousandths. So 9 should be in the thousands place. Well, if the thousands place is 3 over, 9 is going to fall there. That means we must fill in 2 zeros for this to be accurate. All right, reading decimal models. Here we have 2 separate examples. Because our boxes are so incredibly small, it might be really hard to read, so I'm going to zoom in on this here for you. All right, on this figure, it is divided into thousands, so we know that we're discussing the thousands place here. And if I count the number of shaded boxes, here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And you may have been able to count that a little bit faster because you know that each one of these hundredths boxes is divided into 10 individual pieces. So 10 plus 3 is 13. So here, when we zoom back out, this figure has 13 out of 1,000 sections shaded, so that would be 13 thousandths in words. And if we wanted to write that in standard form, we just have to make sure that that 3 in 13 is in the thousands place. So it would be 13 thousandths, where this reads 13, but that 3 is falling in the thousandths place. Now over here to example 2, here we have one whole square shaded, and that would represent the whole number 1. So we can go ahead and write that 1. And then over here we have just a portion of this square shaded. So let's look at that decimal part. All right, zoomed in, it's a little bit easier to see here. We have 10 boxes for each one of these sections here. So we have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. And you'll notice we have 100 in each one of these rows. So you have 100, 200, 300, and then we have some individual little boxes down here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 plus 300 is 305. All right, with our whole number here, we have 1 representing this portion. And then for our decimal, we recognize that this section right here was 305 thousandths because these divisions are in thousandths. So you would just add that onto the end, 305. Make sure that your 5 is falling in the thousandths place. And that's all for thousandths.